Happy Tuesday, everybody. My name's Aaron. I'm the co-founder, managing director here at BWG Connect. We're a giant networking knowledge sharing group, and I spend the majority of my time talking to brands during the week. I try to hit 20 to 30, and when the same topics come up over and over again, we do an event like this, and we're going to do close to 200 of those this year. Do a bunch of dinners. So if you're going to be at one of the tier one cities around, just ping us. We'd love to meet you in person. We're going to do probably around 75 of those dinners this year. But really what I like to do is stay on top of the newest trends and strategies, things that are really driving business development, conversion, whatever it might be in the digital space. And so today's topic, before we jump into it, just a couple of housekeeping items. Number one, we're starting 3 to 4 minutes after the hour, and we're going to wrap up with at least 3 to 4 minutes to go as well. Maybe even a little bit more than that, depending on how it goes and how many questions we have to answer. And so that's another thing. We want this to be as educational and informational as possible. So at any point in time, if you have a question, drop it in the chat, drop it in the Q&A, and we'll get it answered as real time as possible. And I think that's about it. So as I mentioned, I'm trying to talk to 20 to 30 brands a week, and something that has come up a ton right now is around increased conversion. A lot of time, effort, money driving people to a direct-to-consumer site, and then we need to do everything we can to help convert. And so I got connected with Joe here from CartSave a while back, and it's really innovative, the platform that he has that captures it. And one of the main things from my point of view was GDPR and CCPA are popping up a lot right now, and how you capture emails, how you capture phone numbers for SMS, and how you actually help convert. And so this is going to be a really fun conversation, I think. But Joe, I'm going to kick it over to you. If you want to do a background on yourself, CartSave, that'd be great. And then we can kind of jump into the slideshow here. Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great. And yeah, thanks, Aaron. I appreciate you pulling this together. I'm going to go a little deeper into our background in just a moment, but I thought I'd start off by, the promise here is to show you 5 tactics that are going to be able to double your cart recovery revenue. And this is without having to change the platform that you're on. I'm going to show you some platforms in just a moment, and then I'll tell you a little bit about our background, my background. But I'm Joe Rollinson, the CEO of CartSave. I'm also the CEO of an e-commerce agency, and this was born out of that. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, just to kind of whet the appetite, here's what you can expect from these tactics. So first of all, they are, as Aaron mentioned, 100% permission-based. That's important because there's a lot of tools out there that are trying to help what I call kind of creepy. Those are fine too. They're compatible with these, but this is 100% permission-based because a lot of our clients aren't, that's important to them. You can expect between 5 and 10% increase in your total revenue from these tactics. And that's driven from, on average, we've seen 125% increase in your recovered cart revenue when you implement these tactics. So it's really, as Aaron mentioned, this is a conversion rate optimization play when it comes right down to it. Another benefit is you're going to be growing your email and SMS lists because this is all about identifying people and having self-identification opportunities. It can be fast to implement. There's a little bit of a caveat there. I'll go into that later. And regardless of whether you implement yourself or you have a partner help you, this has always been killer ROI. And this last statement, I think, is something I welcome you to challenge me on this, but I really believe these tactics are going to be table stakes. Just like you would, if you talk to someone in e-commerce and they said, abandoned cart follow-up, what's that? Like everybody does that, right? It's table stakes. You must do it. It works. Everybody says it works. I think these tactics belong in that same camp and will hopefully get there. So that's why I'm trying to spread the word. So if you're on one of these platforms, we have implemented these tactics on it. So it's confirmed working. But these tactics are universal. I think you'll see why, but there's some details about how to implement. And so if you're on any of these, Shopify Klaviyo is a big one, of course, but we've done it on all of these. And this kind of highlights too, that all of these have this gap that we're kind of addressing. Okay, so now about me and us. As an e-commerce agency for running for the last 19 years, we've had a passion for A/B tests and conversion rate optimization. And so we would do this exercise where we would kind of prioritize a group of tests by the potential impact in the business and ease of implementation. And over time, these tactics, we used to implement them kind of by hand, individually coding on each platform. They just kept working over and over again. And so we decided, hey, let's turn this into a service to make it easier. But these tactics we used to implement exactly the way I'm going to show you. In 2019, Adobe gave us the Innovations Lab Award for our A/B tests and our extension that does advanced A/B test extensions, like allowing different tests in different stores. So we were able to test some of these things that might have been hard for others to test. And we had some brave merchants that said, sure, I'll try it. And the payoff is what you're about to learn about. We're also official partners of Klaviyo, Shopify, BigCommerce, Adobe, and Dot Digital. So it's been helpful to kind of navigate the interactivity. Okay, this slide is the most important slide, so please pay attention. If you take one piece of information away from today, it's what's on this slide. So most of you know, it's a stat that's been out there for a long time. 70% of the carts that get created on your store are not going to turn into orders on that visit. That's the industry average cart abandonment rate. Baymart Institute's had like 14 years they've been studying this. What most people don't know, and they can't even measure, is that of those abandoned carts, 80% of those are anonymous. So there's no way to follow up with them. Only 20% of them have an email address, SMS. And that's a huge number, right? It's more than the people that are ordering from you. This group of people that are out there anonymous, created a cart, had enough interest, and you have no way to follow up with them. So when we kind of identified this early on in some of our conversion rate optimization, we said, what could we do if we were just all in on identifying carts? And what would it mean? Just I want you to think about, what would it mean if you could follow up with 2 or 3 times as many of those anonymous carts? It's a big number. You get a small percentage of them. It is going to drive quite a bit of incremental revenue. So today, reachable carts are on the typical platform are people that have gotten to checkout, started typing in an email address. They're either logged in on your store already, not very many of them. If things are set up properly, if they come from a click on one of your email marketing messages and they add products to the cart, you will be able to follow up with them. I'm going to go into some details, important details on that one in a moment. And then the last one I've mentioned here is what I kind of call the creepy tactics. Nothing really against them, but you have to walk a fine line. These are the things that kind of say, hey, I will give you an email address for an anonymous visit because I've got my network over here of IP addresses and fingerprints, and I can triangulate on who this is. And maybe we'll get 20 or 30% of them identified. Maybe it's the right person, maybe it isn't, someone else in the home. But we're gonna try to help you follow up with these people, but they haven't ever given you permission. That's fine if you're doing those things. In fact, it would be interesting in the chat if you're able to, maybe mention whether you're running one of those tools. But I just want you to know that all the things I'm going to show you here are totally compatible with that. And I think you'll see why in a moment. And they're all permission based, as I mentioned.
So
All
really
right,
quick, I do
so
want to put
go
that
ahead.
out there
Yeah.
again, just for the people that have joined is, if you have questions or comments along the way, drop them in the chat or drop them in the Q&A and we'll get to them real time while we're going through this. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks, Aaron. Okay, so diving right into the tactics, that's why you're here. This first one is a confirmation prompt back as soon as an anonymous visitor first creates a cart. And I'm actually going to show you how that works. So here we're on King's Camo. I've got a pair of pants. I'm going to choose the color I want. I'm going to choose the size. Typical e-commerce experience. Scroll down, add this to my cart. Okay. And right at this moment, yes, we're reflecting back. XKG Ridge Pant was added to your cart. So this is kind of like, yes, someone expects an answer back from the website that something happened when I clicked on the button. But we take this opportunity to kind of force a decision. Do you want to save this cart? And you have the ability to enter an email. And you also, if you're kind of doing an advanced way, you can do this via SMS. And once you start typing in, you get SMS consent. What's really great about this tactic, and it's our most powerful tactic, is when we first tested this, we were surprised by just how many people took us up on this. And to date, we have the range is between 20 to 45% of people prompted with this when they first add a product to the cart and they're anonymous, so they didn't come from email marketing, things like that. We get 20 to 45% of them typing in the email address. It's kind of important to talk about why, because this is the thing that's the most surprising to people when they implement these tactics and they see just how many people voluntarily save this cart like this. When you look at reasons for abandonment, like Baymard Institute's, studies, the big ones are people are adding products to cart to find their total all-in costs, right? Shipping costs included. They need to put in destinations and things. You need to have something in a cart to get that. They want to find out when are these things going to get there, right? There's a lot of reasons why people add products to the cart, and they already know in that moment they're not ready. They're not ready to pull the trigger. So when you say, "Hey, I'll make it super easy for you to get back," do you want like essentially a bookmark in your email? It's like, yes, please, or a bookmark you could send to somebody else to get back to this cart. So a lot of people find this just helpful. So back to the slide deck, and I mentioned, yeah, 20 to 45%. That's a surprising number. Okay, so that's the first tactic. The second one is a kind of a
Yeah, really
riff
quick.
on
I
that.
thought the same
Yeah, go
thing.
ahead.
Well, yeah, Lewis, I love the reason for saving the cart. I was just going to bring that same thing up that this isn't, hey, would you like us to save the cart? Have you AP tested that wording where it's get back to your cart from anywhere? Like, I thought that was really that wording it rings different for me, and I think it does for a lot of people. Phoebe's in here too. Onboarding CartSave soon. Awesome. Um,
You know, sorry, I didn't see that. Was there something in the chat about the wording?
Yeah. Are you saving the cart regardless? Yeah, well, yeah, Lewis put in here, love the reason given for saving the cart, which is not, get back to your cart from any device. If you tested that A/B tested in those wording, and then Emily drops a question in here, are you saving the cart regardless?
So the cart is being saved by the platform. The difference is without an email address, it's an anonymous cart, right? So you have no ability to do the follow-up later if they abandon. And the user at this point also, if they don't have the opportunity to save the cart, they could come back from a different device. And of course, they're not going to have their cart. And I'll show you later, but they could come back from the same device and still not have their cart because of the way cookies are being expired and things by Safari. In terms of the A/B test, that's a great question. We actually have A/B tested this prompt quite a bit. You'll notice it's very lackluster. It's very transactional. We've had some of the brands are super awesome with their lifestyle images, and we had like a marketing message. The more it seems like you're trying to, it's like an email pop up. The worse it performs. The more that this is just a dialogue, right? They just added a product to their cart, and you're saying, "Thank you, your product's been added." And then, do you want to save it? The more this is like a system message, the better it performs in our A/B tests. And so that's why it's very sparse. We do inherit like we do recommend, of course, inheriting your styles from your website, but yeah, the more transactional, the better.
Awesome.
Awesome. Okay, so we'll go on to the second tactic, and yeah, Aaron, let me know if there's other questions or things that I can address as we go. Okay, so tactic number two, like I said, is a riff on the first tactic, which is basically embedding this option to save a cart on certain critical pages, right? Like now you're on a cart review page or checkout, and those are places where people start to have other types of considerations, right? Am I really ready to do this? Maybe I check a few more sites before I do it. And this is a common place for abandonment, right? Actually, in our research and analytics, half of the people that add a product to their cart never make it to checkout. That's a very important thing to think about when you think about how can I make sure I'm following up with people. So like the default with Shopify and Klaviyo, for example, there's an event called Checkout Started. It doesn't fire until someone reaches checkout. And there are events you can add that fire before that, but it's important to acknowledge that 50% of people aren't going to make it there. But if they've made it to the cart review or to checkout, and let's say it's for example, one of our hard to find boat parts clients, you've got a bunch of things there and you want to save it, then you may be about to abandon, but you may very much appreciate the ability to save the cart. So we see people taking us up on this offer too. It's the embedded save cart. Okay,
So
tactic number
really
three
quick, so this
gets,
is
yeah, go
distinctly
ahead.
different than creating an account, correct? That's a question that
Correct.
comes
This
in.
is, yep. This is just type in the email address and we're just going to send an email right away that says, here's a link to your cart. It's also cross device. So where someone might be able to bookmark a page or something, this actually gets them an email that they can get back to that link from any device. And that's an important factor.
Recommendations for implementing the Save Your Cart form in a cart drawer context where space is limited. We don't currently leverage a full cart page in our properties.
Yeah, so like this client of ours here has the cart drawer, and I'm just showing you the exit intent, but they have the cart drawer. Um, what I'd say is that we've definitely tested also an embedded in here in this cart drawer instead of the pop-up for the prompt when they first add a product to their cart. And the prompt outperformed by 4 times. People just don't see it here, and I think they're kind of blind to it because they're okay. Here's a cart drawer, and there's things in it. So it is you can add it here too. We've done that before, but I think where you get more leverage is if you add it on a cart review page or on checkout. And then because on this page, if you have a cart drawer, you really should be doing that modal confirmation prompt to make sure that they see it and they have to either close it or move on. Okay, so we'll go into the third tactic because this gets a little thick, but there's a lot of juice in this. So email marketing links and cookies. So I would imagine that all of you on this call right now are already doing follow up through your automation, your digital marketing platforms for abandoned carts, right? And that follow up is sending certain email links out, right? So what you want to avoid is what we call naked links. So what do I mean by that? If you don't have a unique identifier on those links to send people back to a cart, they are going to have to be on the same device and have to have their cookies still alive to be able to restore that cart. And a lot of people are, maybe checking things out on desktop, and then when they abandon, they're checking their email on mobile, and it's very common to be switching devices in the middle here. So how do you, like, for example, Klaviyo by default, if you're using the added to cart event, it sends to a product page. So imagine you've added a bunch of products to your cart, you've chosen sizes and colors and quantities, or hard to find things where there's a ton of different options, like our boat part manufacturer. And now you want to get back to it, and they go, "Hey, go back to a product page." And you're like, "Where's my cart?" So that's what Klaviyo does by default with the added to cart. So if you look at your emails that go out, to follow up with people once they've abandoned, and you can look inside Klaviyo.digital, MailChimp, and if it's just going to a naked link and there's nothing that helps the platform identify the cart, then that is not going to be cross-device, and it's going to be a bad experience. And you're going to see the users are going to go, if they go to their cart, they're going to see something like this: shopping cart is empty, right? Now, so it is possible. For example, Shopify has a limitation. Magento and Adobe Commerce have, the ability to do this, but Shopify by default doesn't make it super easy to come back to a cart. So just you have to do a little bit of work to recreate that cart on the front end with some JavaScript, but it is possible to send people back to the full cart. And so, yeah, so just keep in mind, that's not a good experience. Probably what you're doing by default right now, you're either sending to a product page or a naked cart link, and it's not cross-device friendly.
So a couple questions come in.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to make sure we can. So why don't the ecom platforms like Shopify or ESPs like Klaviyo or MailChimp already have these features? And the other one is, how do you handle, let's tackle that one, and then let's tackle the next one from Emily. How do you handle this when most of your list hasn't agreed? We'll get to that one next.
Perfect. Okay, so, and yeah, that's an excellent question. We get that, I'd say, like 95% of the time. And I just think we didn't uncover these things until we were so deep, right? Like analyzing every possible opportunity to identify a cart. When you're Klaviyo and you're building the integration with Shopify, even, I don't know, for some of you that have been on Klaviyo for any period of time, Klaviyo didn't even use to prompt you to do the added to cart event. So if you were having the default Klaviyo app, you only were following up with people that made it to checkout. And I just mentioned that 50% of people that add a product to the cart don't even get to checkout. So Klaviyo had a massive gap, and they go filling them a little bit by bit, but this is not their main focal point, right? For Klaviyo, for Digital, for MailChimp, for Omnisend. They do their best. And then, for example, Shopify has a bit of a gap in that where BigCommerce and Adobe Commerce make it easier, even WooCommerce, to kind of expose a cart link that can be universal, so it can be cross-device. Shopify doesn't do that properly. So Klaviyo doesn't have like a proper way to send over the cart link to the platform. And so you just kind of say, oh, well, I guess I'll just send people to the product page because that's what Klaviyo tells me to do on their help article, or that's what Shopify tells me to do. But the reality is, there's even an app on BigCommerce that does only that part because it's a gap. So if you got in deep into any of these things, you'd find that they get you, well, in this case, it's 50% of the way there, right? But they haven't studied this deeply to kind of say, whoa, I didn't realize there's all these people that we're leaving behind because we haven't really gone that deep in the tech. And then
Awesome.
you said
So,
the second question.
well,
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna jump. Emily, I'm gonna come back to yours. So do you know if the Shopify Plus marketing automation for abandoned cart recovery also has this same problem getting back to the specific cart? Has this improved
Ooh,
since Shopify recently extended the length of time a cart is valid? I want to tackle that one because I think it flows together, and then we can go. Emily, right after this, we'll get to your question.
that's an excellent question. I don't know if the built-in Shopify email marketing does that. It's very easy for you to tell though. Go and create a cart, go to checkout, type in your email address. It should be, some of the platforms don't even detect when you type in your email address and then leave that field. But Klaviyo's had that for a long time. JavaScript sends it to the platform and says, aha, it's now Joe at CartSave.io. Let's send an event and start a checkout event to the platform and we can follow up with the abandoned. But it will be easy for you to check on the Shopify native emails. Just look and see if the cart link that you receive by email is essentially naked. And it may be tough. They may add a bunch of UTM parameters and things, but just open that link up in an incognito window and see if you actually get a cart restored. 9 times out of the 10, you're not. It's just saying, oh, well, of course you're on the same device where you abandoned. So they just give you a naked cart link.
Awesome. So how you handle this when most of your list hasn't agreed to T's and C's for cart abandons, and then you implement this strategy and you're able to link directly to the cart.
So this, for me, there's a lot about what is like GDPR versus CCPA versus like CAN spam law. But here, I think that this is safely within the realm of someone is asking you, you're asking them specifically, do you want something? And they're saying yes. So you're getting the permission right then to send them a link to their own cart. So this is not a marketing message. This is a function of the site. So it's more along the lines of transaction emails, right? You don't need permission to send someone an order receipt because it's assumed that you had a business relationship. They just finished paying you money. Here, they just finished adding a product to the cart, which is the first step in an ordering process. And you're asking them, specifically, do you want this? And you're specifically doing what they ask. So that's where we fall on that. And if you look at the details of the various, programs, now the question would be, what you do with that email in terms of going back and marketing to them. But when they've specifically requested a link to the cart, following back up with that, and that's their initial wish. That's never been an issue. That seems it's 100% they're giving you permission to do that. All right, should we keep moving?
Yeah, I think we should. We'll keep grabbing questions that come in.
Great questions.
Oh, really quick. Oh, so
Love
Steven
that.
said
Yeah,
for reference, got a unique link and it took me to check out with the appropriate product, which is cool.
cool.
Was that an incognito window or was it was it on a separate device and was it in a incognito? Cool.
There's a caveat there. So Shopify, if you get to checkout, the Klaviyo and Shopify app will send you back to a checkout, and it is cross-device friendly. What you have to test, sorry, I didn't specify this. What you want to test is if you create a cart and you don't make it to checkout, are they doing any follow-up at all? And so, for example, the way to test that would be to send yourself an email from your Shopify native email marketing platform. Clear all your cookies out. Get rid of all your application data, click on the link that you received in your email to go to this to the site, add a product to your cart, and then don't do anything else and see if you get any follow-up. Most likely, if you do get follow-up, that's an event, for example, with Klaviyo that's called added to cart. And if you do get follow-up, you may not get follow-up on the Shopify native. I'd be curious to see that. But if you do get follow-up, it's almost certainly going to be a naked link and not cross-device to the cart. If you make it all the way to checkout, then they actually send you back to checkout, not to cart review. And that does work cross-device even with Klaviyo.
Yeah.
But remember, 50% of people that add a product to their cart don't get to checkout. So that's why this tactic is a big lift if you can get, that other half that are coming from your email marketing.
I do want to get to cookies. One more question, and then we'll hold some for the. Do you? People keep submitting them, but I want to get through this cookies.
This is
thing.
great. Yeah, bring
it. Do you automatically sign them up for emails?
Yeah, so that's a kind of a question that you have to pass through each merchant, and your level of comfort on that. But the majority of our merchants have chosen yes to add those people after they've gone through the follow-up if they abandon. If not, if they don't abandon, then they may be opting in through whatever you have on your checkout. And so each merchant's got a little bit of a different scenario of what their threshold is for someone to opt in. And obviously, depending to where you're operating and if you're concerned about California's regulations or Europe's. But yeah, the majority of our merchants have decided to go ahead and take these and add them to their general list after, like at the end of the flow of any follow-up that might be there to remind them of their cart.
Awesome. Jacob, we're going to get through this slide and we'll jump over to your question.
Okay, so cookies. This landscape has changed in recent years. So Apple has this identity transfer protection, and like for example, mobile Safari, those certain cookies get expired by the browser within a day. Certain scenarios, other scenarios within 7 days. So let me paint you the picture. If I've signed up for your emails and you send me your email marketing. I click on that and go to the website. In that visit, most of these digital marketing platforms are smart enough to say, oh, okay, here's Joe. And he did an active on site. And now he's did a product view. So you can do browse abandonment. Now he's done an added to cart. Okay, great. And it's all identified with me and my profile. But that's reliant on that cookie that's set, right? If they're coming from a direct link on your email marketing, that's fine. If that person decides to come directly back to the website a day later, a week later, 2 months later, you should still be able to identify them, and you actually can. What you have to do is you have to set these cookies, for example, if it's Klaviyo or Omnisend, you have to set those cookies into a longer term browser storage, and then you need to restore that when they come back. And that way you're able to, even if they come back 6 months later, they're still someone who is on your list. They still gave you permission to be in touch with them, of course, unless they opted out. But if they opted out, you will take care of that in your digital marketing platform when it comes time for you to follow up with them, right? That's automated. So this is another gap where it's like you would never expect like a Klaviyo or any of these platforms to think about this, but there's a lot of people that come back that are not necessarily coming back from your email marketing, and you have the ability to identify them, but because Safari's killed their cookies so quickly, you don't know who they are without doing this. So this is another one that has a lot of leverage, surprisingly. Bit technical, but it's doable. Any questions on that one, Aaron? Because that one might be, yeah.
Yeah, in your A/B testing, what is the best time to delay to deliver an abandoned cart trigger email from the time of adding to cart?
Good question. So what we've done more testing on is, well, I can tell you this: the follow-up that happens 1 hour after abandonment tends to have the most revenue across all of the we see tons of accounts, right? And we get to see which ones have the revenue. So our recommended cadence and is 1 hour after the abandonment. then 1 day after the abandonment. And then if you want to get really advanced, a 5 email sequence really performs well, where day 3, you start telling them that their cart is only going to survive for a certain amount of time left. And if you, for example, if you are doing promotion in your follow-up, you start to say, hey, the cart items will be gone, possibly sold out too, but your cart's only going to live until X, right? Like in maybe you say 48 hours more, and take advantage of this promo code. And that's only good for the next 48 hours. And then now that gives you, so that's the third email. Now that gives you an excuse to have a fourth and fifth email, right? Like, hey, just a reminder, this is coming up. Your cart's going to expire. And then a final one. The final one on day 7 is a good idea because the day 1 and the day 7 have a similar idea in that the day 1 should hopefully be at the same time of day when they abandon. And so then maybe there's an assumption, maybe they're checking this out before work, maybe it's after work. But what if it's on a weekend, right? And it's a Sunday. Maybe they're not in the mode of buying your products during the week, but you hit them up 1 week later, and it should be that they're in the same time and space that they were when they first abandoned the cart. So 1 hour, 1 day, day 3, day 5, day 7. That's a lot of messages, but you have good excuses to reach out to them in between there. So it's not, it's not fatigue in there. And that's the one we've seen outperform. We have A/B tested that against a shorter version and have seen it outperform. All right. Should we keep moving?
Yeah.
Cool. This is awesome. Great questions. Okay. So tactic number 4 is again a riff on the saving the cart. If someone goes and they're in the cart review and they've got a bunch of items like this, one of our clients has hard to find boat parts I mentioned. You're tracking down the cable that you need along with this other piece, or if you've got like a kit and you've got accessories, you're trying to get all these things together. And so maybe you've already seen a prompt to save your cart, but that was right when you started, and now you're further along. You can hit them up with an exit intent and say, hey, before you go, do you want to save your cart? And this one also gets people who have gone further in and now want to save their cart on the cart review or on product pages. And then this final tactic, so because I promised you 5, a lot of people will have like a gift finder or like a product quiz. Dollar Shave Club asks you, what do you shave, your face or your legs? How, do you have challenges with irritation, right? They have all these great questions to help identify the product for you. Or in the case of these guys, Melissa and Doug, it's like, who are you buying for? Is it a child? Is it men, women, active, whatnot, right? So people spend a lot of time, and these can be very powerful in the discovery process of your products. If you're doing this, you're usually always at the end of it sending them an email and say, do you want to, we'll send you the results of your quiz. Most of the time, if those are hosted externally or however you're doing it, if people type in an email address there, and that's usually the beginning of their journey, you're not triangulating that to now we know who they are. And if they create a cart, we can follow up with them if they later abandon it. So we have, learned that we look for these things and we listen to any of the email entry that can happen anywhere on the website. And then if it happens, we can store that in the browser. And then if there's a cart already, or if they later create one, we have now a reachable cart. So those are the 5 tactics. Aaron, before I get into kind of like what you can expect to see in terms of revenue improvement, are there any other questions that came in about these?
Yeah, by long-term browser storage, do you mean web storage and indexed APIs in the browser?
Yeah, so basically there are ways to use local storage in the browser to set these values and then to restore them. I guess I'll probably leave it there because it gets pretty technical. But
Yeah,
yeah,
Steven, I'll probably just connect you with Joe. I think you guys would probably have a fun hour, 2 hour long conversation as it is. That'd be cool.
yeah,
More than happy to make that connection. More than happy to make the connection for everybody.
yeah. And that goes like anyone who's technical, there's a couple things that I'd be happy to share about how to recover a cart on Shopify, for example, if they haven't gotten to checkout, and this idea of the cookies. Yeah, so happy to do that. Okay, so how do you figure out how much these tactics could lift your revenues? Because everything we do in e-commerce, and I'm sure you guys are the same, it's all about investing in things that will produce a return, right? So if you don't know how much additional revenue you can bring with this. You won't know like how much can I spend in dev effort or whatnot to get this done, or an outside service. So if you look today at what you're doing in, for example, in Klaviyo, and you look at, here's my abandoned cart flow, or here's the flow that has the started checkout event, and here's the flow that has the added to cart, right? Those combined would be your existing abandoned cart recovery revenue. Whatever that amount is, you can expect to double that. So if it's $5,000 per month, for example, today, when you implement these tactics, and you probably need to create an additional flow. That's the way we do it, so that you can send that email right away for these different events where they're requesting a link to their cart that's like real time. You'll see this additional flow of that same $5,000 that you're adding to the original 5,000, and many times it's maybe $7,000 or $8,000. It's I'm going to show you some examples. So the other thing
Really
that's
quick.
very,
So
yeah,
the
go
other
ahead.
question that comes in, so does CartSave sit over top of Klaviyo?
Yes. So our solution, CartSave, but even if you implement directly yourself, these things, they live with Klaviyo. They live with your digital marketing platform. So for example, here you're seeing a list of flows. CartSave, when we do this implementation, we have an additional flow that's called CartSave Recovery. And that flow is aware and doesn't take action if they're already in the other flow. And that's what we would recommend that you do with this, because so that this effort on these tactics, what was the lift on it. So you would continue to see the revenue flowing in your the automations you already had in place, and now you have this additional one that's saying, hey, if no one else is going to follow up with them, I am, because I did a better job identifying these people. So yeah, I definitely want to have it play nice and be inside of your digital marketing platform.
Awesome.
Cool. So it is also helpful to track how many of your carts are reachable. And this is information that is not, to my knowledge, it's definitely not available in Klaviyo, MailChimp, Omnisend. Who else have we implemented on? So this is information you can't get. It's not available on Shopify, and also the source of capture. So if you're good with your like analytics and things, you can your dev team may be able to think about this. But this is also something that we've added to our service. This is a little bit. This is a dashboard that we have. Our CartSave. We have a CartSave app for Shopify. If you're on Shopify, and there's a free version that will collect these stats for you. So you can see the percentage of reachable carts, and you can see, what is the percentage of revenue coming through cart recovery as a percentage of the total. And you can also see, very importantly, where are you capturing the email. So email marketing is of course going to usually be a very big one. So if they come from an email marketing link, then they create a cart, you can have ways of saying, okay, I know because of the cookies present that they came in through email marketing, or I know that they came from the prompt that I implemented, or I know that they came in because they typed in their email address in checkout. But this is helpful to know, where am I identifying carts, and is this stuff helping me out? Okay, so I mentioned, yeah, we have a Shopify app, we have a BigCommerce app, we have a kind of an app approach on Adobe Commerce, WooCommerce. Those are the 4 commerce platforms where CartSave makes all of this stuff easy. But specific to Shopify and BigCommerce, the free app will give you that dashboard I just mentioned. It'll just sit there and listen. It listens to all the placed orders that come in, all the carts that get created, all the traffic from email, and it triangulates and gives you those stats. Okay, so I wanted to start to tell you a little bit. I mean, all of this is just hearsay until you hear about some results, right? And I wanted to show you some kind of graphs and things to show you. These are some of the clients where we've implemented these tactics. Interestingly, with Great Lakes Skipper, and in addition to seeing really good revenue lifts, they were surprised to get some like pleasant customer service messages saying, that was so nice to be able to save my cart. Why doesn't everybody do that? So they've been really happy with that, not just from the revenue side, but from the customer service side. These guys, after implementing, saw just a huge jump up. And this is actually very common. Even though like 125% increase in revenues been our average, the increase in the amount of carts you're following up with is the average has been closer to 300%. So you can see these are just emails being sent out. And this is a huge jump up after implementing CartSave. They had almost 4 times as many reminder emails going out. In other words, 4 times as many carts being identified. And they saw from before and after 179% increase in their recovery revenue. Um, Emmerich here from Harney Tees, that was pretty interesting. We got introduced to them by Klaviyo for an advanced replenishment flow he wanted to create, and we had some custom Shopify events to help him do that. And then we said, hey, want to check out CartSave? And he's like, okay, maybe, but I've had tons of advanced agencies in here optimizing the heck out of everything. So I'm not really a believer, but why not? And so, and they even had some of those, what I'd call creepy identification tools in place. And we said, what do you have to lose, right? These tactics, we've seen them work time and time again. So I love that when we had such great results, that he's kind of like, it was surprising for him, right? That how quickly, and that there was this gap. We hear that over and over from our merchants, like, and someone asked that question earlier, like, really, why does this gap exist? But it's like, it makes sense. Like, people can't know 100% of all the advanced things to do. Here's what they had, emails going out. This is the revenue, but this is the actual email sends, right? And you can't see off of this old card, but this was a combination of the CartSave recovery flow, which was our flow, and then their abandoned cart flow. And yeah, you can see that those emails just kept going out from their existing one, but then the CartSave recovery just added, again, almost 4 times as many carts that they're following up with, and 153% increase in recovery revenue for them. And then highly, John Palmer here actually works for Klaviyo now, which is kind of cool. But so one of the things he pointed out is, in addition to the revenue lift, it was nice because they were spending quite a bit of money on retargeting, paid, and capturing a lot more of those people to the email list they automatically, suppressed anyone who was, of course, on their email list. They don't want to pay for those clicks when they know they're going to be able to follow up with them by email. So they were actually able to see also a reduction in their spend on retargeting, in addition to capturing a lot more emails and also to seeing the revenue increase. This is further back, but this is kind of the addition of these various flows before and after. We omitted the holiday season, to be fair, because they always had a big holiday. But yeah, these guys saw a nice big 173% increase in revenue, and they were at 52% of their carts being reachable with all the tactics implemented. So let me stop. Aaron, any other questions have come in since then?
Yeah, it says if you're running an abandoned browsed, abandoned product, and abandoned cart triggers, what are the best ways to prioritize the abandoned cart trigger over those other abandonment triggers?
Excellent question. Okay, so the way I see those is, and this is why you want it all in the same platform, right? There are solutions out there that kind of will come in and send their own emails, but those emails need to be aware of what other flows you have. So that's an excellent question. So what we look to do is, you prioritize based on how deep in the funnel they are. If you're on Klaviyo, for example, there's a checkout started event. That event only fires if they make it to checkout. If they made it to checkout, they're good with things, and now they're just figuring out payment, shipping. So you want to send them back to checkout. So for example, that flow should have priority over all other flows, right? You wouldn't send someone to a naked product page when they actually have a cart and they reached checkout. You want to send them there. So the order in terms of the funnel is checkout, and then if they created a cart, and like in Klaviyo, it's added to cart. So, but maybe they don't make it to checkout. So if they don't make it to checkout and there's no started checkout, there'd be an added to cart event. You want that to prioritize over your browse abandonment, because again, the browse abandonment is going back to a product page, not to a cart, right? And watch out for Klaviyo. Klaviyo is sending back to a product page, not to a cart, or you may change it yourself to a naked cart link, but it's session based. So you go to a different device and you're going to see your shopping cart is empty. So checkout, added to cart, then your product browse abandonment would be the order. And so each one would have flow filters, or, in Digital, your program filters and setup, or your journeys in MailChimp, to say, only take action here if they're not already being followed up with there or there, right? So your browse abandonment, you'd say, I don't want to send an email here if there was already a checkout started event or an added to cart event, or if they're already in those respective flows. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah,
Okay,
awesome.
so
So then
just
this
yeah,
might
go ahead.
blend right into this one. So Lewis drops a question in. What's the average time to implement on Adobe Commerce? Do you implement or have partners who do it? And what is your revenue model? And I want to change it a little bit from Adobe to like, can you divide it up? Like, hey, if I'm on Adobe or Magento, if I'm on Shopify, if I'm, BigCommerce or Woo, like what is the average time? And then, yeah.
Oh, what a great question, because that's exactly what I'm going into now. So I mentioned I think these tactics they should be table stakes in e-commerce. So if you're not, we do offer to implement this to answer the question. But I think there's cases where you just need to do it yourself for whatever variety of reasons. So this is what you'd have to do. And then my next slide talks about what it's like if you work with us. All the work we've done to say, let's stop doing the exact same thing over and over again by hand with code in the themes or in the skin of Adobe Commerce. Do the work to appify this, and we can make it easier for people to try it. But if you're doing it yourself, this is also a recap of our tactics, right? So the first one is you need to intercept when someone adds a product to the cart and show a prompt that allows them to save that cart. That is the number one performing tactic, that and the email marketing, the gaps there. You'll be so surprised how many people are being missed by your default platform follow-up when they come from email marketing. The second one, you want to be able to embed that on a cart review, on a checkout page, maybe even on a cart drawer, or other places that are key in your funnel. Just make it super easy to save anywhere that they are in their journey, the cart. Third one is definitely work on those cookies. So you need to, set those, set them into the local storage in the browser, restore them when they come back on the visit. And that way, someone, even if they come back 6 months later, 9 months later, a year later, you you have a really good chance of knowing, okay, this is Joe at CartSave because he's already on my list and we had the cookies before and he hasn't cleared his cookie, he hasn't cleared out his browser storage, and we know who he is. Build an exit intent. That's there are some tools out there and some libraries that detect, okay, mouse is going out of the window or it's going to close. And that one, if the cart's present, you can say, hey, save your cart. If the cart's not present, you may do some of your other, there's tactics and services out there that say, hey, before you go, take 10% off on this visit or something. So the exit intent, you may already be doing it, but make it aware of your cart. And that one is powerful because now you can follow up with something really specific. Add listeners to your quizzes and gift finders. So that's a JavaScript type thing. And then you'll want to create a flow inside of your platform, right? And I mentioned you typically want to clone whatever you're doing for abandoned cart. And this would be a new flow. In our case, we call it CartSave Recovery. But this one needs to send an email right away. If they came in through like one of the prompts or the embedded safe cart or the exit intent or listening on quizzes and then they later abandon. Oh, actually, that's not the real time one. So there's three cases where you need to send them an email right away, and you need the flow to be aware of that and send that email right away because that's the expectation. And then you want to add some analytics to track how many carts are reachable and where you're actually identifying the carts. And then, of course, you need to do all your testing in your platform. If it's Adobe Commerce, like the question asked, on your staging environment, make sure it's all working, make sure the prompts are happening, and then make sure it's communicating with your digital marketing platform, and then launch it. So that's all the work we've done at CartSave is to make that as easy as possible. So the process, if you work with CartSave, is you install our app. If it's Shopify, BigCommerce, Magento is really the addition of either a snippet or a tag manager. Same with Woo. So it's very lightweight. You're not having to get a bunch of composer stuff to compile out new extension code and things like that. And usually that's 5 minutes to do that app installation, right? If not less. Then the next thing is if you're working with us, you're typically getting us access to your platform. So you're just creating some users, and then we're able to get the API keys inserted into the app, but more importantly, we're able to get in there and we will do that setup of cloning what you have existing. So it's all your brand and same messaging and stuff. It's just now we're going to send that first email, and now we're going to be aware with the filters of making sure not to step on the other automation that's already in place. And then the last thing is, so when you're working with us, it's like 10 minutes to just get to that point. We have a little bit of work. Usually it's just a business day or two. And then we say, okay, like on Shopify, here's a test theme to go check it out. Or on, Adobe Commerce, You've given us a staging environment. Okay, it's live in your staging environment. Go check it out and try it. And it's communicating with the digital marketing platform. You go add a product to cart, you try the embedded, you receive the emails, you click on them, you go to click on them from a different device and you make sure and you go, okay, great. Maybe all that takes you 10 minutes to confirm like a flow, get the email, click on it. Yep, okay, I see my cart again. I sent the link to someone else. They can get back to the cart. Looks good to me. And launched. So that all the work we've put in to kind of appify this was so that we could take this down from, I think this used to run us about 20 hours of dev time to implement these things. And now it's 20 minutes if you are working through CartSave. And then so there's questions about how we structure our arrangement. And so this is a good segue into this because we're so focused on ROI, when we're trying to figure out, well, what's a fair way to price this? If some merchant has, a massive amount of carts and traffic and things, we're ingesting gigabytes per day, right? Of all that, we have to listen to every click, we have to listen to every cart creation, we have to get every order that comes through the platform and triangulate that, and we have to communicate with the email marketing platform. And so being in the middle, it's making it a lot easier to implement, but we have a lot of data ingest. So what we've done is we've looked and seen this is so powerful. It's nice. We have the luxury that this is going to trip your baloney meter. But our guarantee is if you implement all 5 of these tactics, and especially like through us, but it doesn't have to be through us. I've shown you everything you need to know. You'll double cart recovery. And then, but in terms of us, our pricing is based on the amount of additional carts that are being recovered. And our flow is separate from yours. So you really know, okay, we're only taking action on people that you're not already following up with. And we guarantee for every dollar spent, you're going to get at least $20 back. So if it was an ad channel, it'd be a 20x ROAS. We're also, because it's Appify, we're able to do this with no upfront cost with a 30-day free trial. So you just see for free for 30 days how much revenue is coming through this flow, right? And that's just all, free and yours to keep. But then that's how we decide, okay, how much activity is going through this? What is the pricing going to be? And we guarantee that whatever that pricing is, let's say we're generating, 10,000 additional revenue a month, then the pricing is going to be somewhere in the neighborhood of $500 to guarantee that it's 20x return. And then, yeah, the best thing about it is that this has just been, we've really done all the work we've said, where can we make this easier to implement? Because we think that's the key. We used to get merchants to do it and say, pay us for 20 hours of development. It's going to be an easy ROI. You're going to see it. But it was like, okay, well, what are our other initiatives? And I'm sure all of you are facing that same challenge, right? Like, do we have time to take this on? That's why we've put all the work into this, is to make it super easy, minimal. Your dev teams don't really need to be involved. You can turn this off instantly because of the app nature, or if it's Google Tag Manager driven in the case of Adobe Commerce. So yeah, that's how our these are all part of our guarantee that you won't need more than 20 minutes of your team time to get this live. There won't be any upfront cost. We're going to give you $20 back for every dollar you invest in us if you decide you want to go continue on with paid, but you get 30 days before that. And whatever that revenue is, it's going to be double of what you're doing today. So I've got a link here that's kind of special for this BWG Connect group, cartsave.io/BWG. And you can go there, schedule a call with us. We do need to know some things about your platform and about your current cart recovery revenues. And there's a couple conditions on the 30-day free trial. The most important one is that you be doing at least $2,000 a month in cart recovery today. And it's just because if you're doing $500 a month in cart recovery, it's still great to have that, to add, let's say 700 to that, but it's harder for us. That's less value for us when we're guaranteeing the 20x ROI. And we do have a $99 a month minimum, because you can see there still is work to get all this in place. So it just doesn't pan out below that. So, Aaron, any
More
other?
questions? Yeah, I
No more
mean, number
questions.
one, we have
Cool.
a bunch of
Oh,
questions. If you want to leave
okay.
that last one up, just in
Sure.
case people want to go, cartsave.io/BWG, we can put that in a follow-up email. But I would encourage everybody, have a follow-up conversation with Joe and the team over there. They're they're really focused on growing brands. And I mean, hopefully his passion comes through. It's part of the reason I really wanted to get him on here. But let's go through some more of these questions. Can we customize the CartSave.io modal dialog? We're obligated to collect additional specific consents for customers located in certain states. Like, can you change what that says?
Yes, that is fully customizable. And we kind of store the HTML and CSS for that specific to your account so that it can be fully customized.
For the exit intent pop-up to save the cart, if that sends the save cart immediately, what is the best practice to follow up with a traditional abandoned cart after that?
Great question. So yeah, if you picture this flow, normally in all these platforms, there's kind of a visual representation of the flow chart of your automation, right? What we do is if they have chosen themselves to save their cart, that prompt from the first prompt of the confirmation prompt, or the embedded, or the exit intent, all three of these, they're getting a link, or they're getting an email right away with a link to their cart. If they did that, in our case, we send in the event, it's called is prompt equals true. Then that's one flow. And so we send them the link to the cart, but the email that would go out an hour later does not go out, because basically they already have the link to their cart there. So we skip that first one that goes out an hour later, and instead, but then we do follow up with depending on exactly the same as what's already in place. So if it's a day later, 3 days later, 5 days later, 7 days later, which is our recommended. But most I would say merchants that we work with are just doing the 3 follow-ups, and we're just having them start with that and doing whatever they're doing existing. So we're not muddying the waters. And then later we may say, hey, move this to 5 and give some incentive of the cart expiring and a little urgency, and I think you can see a little lift. So yeah, skip the 1 hour and then go to the 1 day later if you've sent them an instant link to their cart.
Awesome. And I see we're right here at time. Mimi dropped in here. Is it possible to share this recording? Yes, we are able to share the recording. We can share a link. We created a YouTube page where we started capturing all these learnings. It may be 4 to 6 days before it actually goes up there, but 100% we can get you a link to go view the recording for sure. Again, thanks everybody today for the great questions that came in. I encourage everybody to have a follow-up conversation with Joe. Joe, thank you so much for being part of the network and helping so many people out and just being open to share today. Again, look for a follow-up email from me, everybody. I'd love to have a conversation with you. What are you trying to solve for? What are the other topics we should cover like this? But with that, thanks again, Joe. And everybody take care, stay safe, and look forward to having you at a future event. Alrighty, take care now, everybody.
Thanks, Aaron.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.